It was a normal evening, or so I thought. My husband was out of town for business, and his best friend was supposed to keep me company. But when we were left alone, things took an unexpected and shocking turn that changed everything between us. You won't believe what happened next. Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this one. Hey, my name is Mary, and what my husband's best friend did to me was unbelievable. I will never forget that day. It all started like any other evening. My husband Brian had left town for a business trip, and as usual, his best friend Alex offered to keep me company. Alex and I had known each other for years. He was always around and I never thought anything of it. He was like family to me, my husband's closest friend, and I trusted him. That evening we were just going to hang out, grab some snacks and watch a movie. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Alex showed up at around 7 p.m., a couple of hours after Brian had left for the airport. He brought over a pizza and we joked around like we usually did. We settled on the couch, flipping through Netflix, trying to decide on what to watch. We ended up choosing a comedy, something light-hearted. I hadn't seen Alex in a while, so I was glad to catch up. We talked about old times, shared a few laughs, and before I knew it, I felt completely comfortable. We opened a bottle of wine, something to sip on while we relaxed. As the night went on, things started to feel different. Alex, usually easygoing and laid back, seemed more animated than usual. I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first, but his comments seemed to have an edge to them. It was like he was trying a bit too hard to be charming, making jokes that were a little too personal, a little too close to the line. He would say things like, "You know, Mary, you're looking even more beautiful than I remember." Or, "It's too bad Brian's not around to see you like this." I didn't think too much of it at first. Maybe he was just being nice. But I started to feel a slight unease creeping in, like something was off. I laughed it off, thinking I was just being paranoid. We were old friends, after all. The night wore on, and by 10 p.m., the wine bottle was nearly empty. We were both starting to feel a little tipsy, but I was still having fun. However, I noticed Alex was a lot more touchy-feely than usual. He would reach over and rest his hand on my knee or shoulder as he spoke, nothing too extreme, but enough to make me feel a bit uncomfortable. I moved away slightly, laughing it off, but he just smiled and kept doing it. "Relax, Mary," he said, a little too casually. "We've known each other forever, haven't we?" His words felt a little too familiar, a little too personal. I smiled weakly, trying to ignore the uncomfortable feeling growing in my chest. But the tension in the air was thick, and no matter how much I tried to brush it off, it was becoming harder to ignore. Then, he did something that I still can't quite believe. It was a simple gesture, really, but it crossed a line I never thought he would cross. Alex reached for the bottle of wine on the table, leaned in closer, and placed his hand on the back of my neck. Just a gentle touch, but the way he did it made me freeze. He tilted my chin up toward him, looking me in the eyes with a gaze that wasn't friendly, wasn't playful, but something else entirely, something more intense. For a split second I couldn't move. My heart started pounding in my chest. Was this happening? Was I imagining it? "Mary," he said softly, his voice low. "You've always been more than just Brian's wife to me." It took everything in me not to pull away, but I did. I jerked back, my heart racing, feeling the blood rush to my face. I laughed nervously, trying to mask the fear that had started to rise in me. I don't know what you mean," I stammered, trying to keep the situation light. "We're friends, Alex." But he didn't laugh it off. He just stared at me, his eyes intense, his hand still lingering just inches from my skin. I felt trapped, unsure of what to do next. "Come on, Mary. We've always been close. There's nothing wrong with having a little fun, is there?" he said, his tone shifting, almost like he was testing me. The air felt thick now, the unease in my chest turning into something much darker. This wasn't how things were supposed to be. This wasn't how I thought I would feel when Brian was away. Thought I was safe. I thought Alex was a friend. I felt like I was in a nightmare, but I couldn't wake up. The line between what was acceptable and what was not was becoming blurred, and I didn't know how to stop it. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my composure. Alex, stop, I said firmly, my voice shaking just a little. This isn't funny. You're crossing a line. For a second, I thought I saw a flicker of regret in his eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. He pulled his hand away and leaned back on the couch, a fake smile plastered on his face. Sorry, he muttered, but I could tell it wasn't genuine. There was something about his tone that made my skin crawl. The rest of the night passed in silence. The mood had completely shifted. I didn't know what to think, and I didn't know what to do. I just wanted him to leave. And when he finally did, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. But as soon as the door closed behind him, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed forever. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the way Alex looked at me. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Maybe the wine got to both of us. Maybe I misunderstood. But deep down I knew better. 2 days later, Alex texted me again. Hey, I left my sunglasses at your place. Mind if I swing by later? It seemed innocent enough. And truth be told, I didn't want to make things awkward. He was Brian's best friend. They had been close since college. Causing tension between them wasn't something I wanted to be responsible for. So I said sure. When Alex showed up, he had his usual relaxed smile, acting like nothing happened. He made a quick joke when I opened the door. Hope I didn't scare you off last time. Must have been the wine, huh? He chuckled like it was no big deal. I laughed nervously. Yeah, I guess. I handed him the sunglasses, hoping he'd take them and leave. But he didn't. Instead, he leaned against the kitchen counter and said, So, Brian's still out of town? That question made my stomach twist. Yeah, he'll be back Sunday, I replied, trying to sound casual. Alex nodded. Cool. You doing okay though? I mean, you must be lonely in that big house all by yourself. I gave a half smile. I'm fine. Been keeping busy. He tilted his head, studying me for a second, then said, You know, if I were your husband, I'd never leave you alone for this long. I mean, look at you. That's when the discomfort started bubbling again. It wasn't a compliment. It was a warning. Something in his tone, in the way he said it, made my skin crawl. I turned to the sink and started rinsing a cup, just to give my hand something to do. Thanks, I mumbled, hoping that would end it. But it didn't. I mean it, he continued, walking closer. You're different. Not just beautiful but real. Most women pretend. But you've got something real. I wanted to disappear. I laughed lightly, trying to play it off. You should save those lines for your dates, Alex. He grinned. Come on, you know I'm not like that. But I didn't know anymore. I wiped my hands with a towel, trying to find a way to end the conversation politely. You're probably busy, I said, hoping he'd take the hint. Don't let me keep you. He paused for a second. His smile faded just a little. Then he nodded and reached for his sunglasses. All right. Just wanted to check in. He started walking toward the door but stopped again and looked at me. You ever need anything, Mary? Anything? I got you, okay? I nodded, too nervous to say anything else. When the door finally closed behind him, I stood there frozen. My hands were shaking. I felt like I had just avoided something I couldn't quite name, but I knew was dangerous. I spent the rest of the evening thinking about what just happened. Was I overreacting? Maybe he was just being friendly. Maybe he didn't mean it the way it sounded. But a part of me, a loud, screaming part one kept trying to ignore, was telling me the truth. This wasn't harmless. This was something else. That night, I locked all the doors and double-checked every window. I didn't feel safe. Not just in my house but in my own skin. Because now, I realized that what I thought was friendship had turned into something much darker. And I had no idea what Alex might do next. The next morning I tried to move on. I told myself I was imagining things. That Alex's words were just poorly chosen. That maybe I was too sensitive. But it was getting harder and harder to believe that lie. That same evening it started raining. Thunder rolled across the sky and the wind was howling like it was angry. I was curled up on the couch in my pajamas, wrapped in a blanket and watching a movie when the doorbell rang. Startled me. I checked my phone, no messages. When I opened the door, there he was again. Alex, soaking wet, holding a pizza box and a bottle of wine. "You looked like you could use some company," he said with a grin. Froze. I didn't invite him. But he looked so casual, so familiar, like this was completely normal. "I figured we could hang out. Like old times," he added, stepping in without even waiting for an answer. I hesitated but didn't stop him. Part of me was scared to say no. The other part didn't want to make things worse by making a scene. "Alex, I really wasn't expecting company tonight." "I know," he said, setting the box down on the table. "But hey, Brian would be glad I checked in on you." I didn't respond. We sat in silence for a while. I only picked at the pizza. I could feel his eyes on me the entire time. Watching. Studying. The movie played in the background, but I wasn't paying attention. My heart wouldn't stop racing. Then, out of nowhere, he said something that made my blood run cold. "Do you ever think about what life would be like if you married me instead?" I turned to look at him, thinking I misheard. "What?" He laughed, but it didn't sound funny. "I mean, come on. You don't think I noticed how we click? How you laugh more with me than you do with Brian?" I sat up straight. "Alex, that's not okay." He leaned closer on the couch. "But it's true, isn't it? You feel it too." "I know you do." "Stop," I said louder this time. "You're my husband's best friend. This isn't right." Then it happened. He reached out and placed his hand on my thigh. Low. Deliberate. Not playful. Not innocent. Froze. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. My mind was screaming, but my body wouldn't listen. "I'm not trying to hurt you," he whispered. "I just want to be close." I pushed his hand away. Hard. "Get out," I said, my voice shaking. He looked shocked, like I had slapped him. "Mary." I said, "Get out." He stood up slowly, rubbing the back of his neck like he was confused. "I didn't mean to make you upset. I thought we had a moment." "There was no moment," I snapped. "You crossed a line, Alex. A big one." He nodded, eyes on the floor. "I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking." But he was. He knew exactly what he was doing. He picked up his jacket and walked to the door. Before leaving, he paused and turned to me. "Please don't tell Brian." Then he left. The door clicked shut and I felt like I could finally breathe again. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. I felt violated. Not just by his touch, but by everything. His words. His presence. His assumption that he could just do that and expect me to be okay with it. The worst part. For a moment. Questioned myself. Did I do something to invite this? Did I smile too much? Was I too friendly? But no. This wasn't my fault. I had been polite, kind, respectful. And he took advantage of that. As I sat alone in the dark, the storm still roaring outside, I realized something terrible. I didn't just lose trust in Alex. I started to lose trust in Brian too. Because if his best friend could do that to me, what did that say about the people my husband surrounded himself with? I wrapped the blanket tighter around myself, but it didn't help. I still felt cold. And completely alone. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, heard his voice, felt that moment. His hand on my thigh, like he had a right to touch me. Like I was just something he could reach for. The next morning, my face was pale in the mirror. My eyes were puffy from crying. But I wasn't going to stay silent. I had to talk to him. I had to make him understand that what he did wasn't just wrong. It broke something inside me. I waited until noon. I needed daylight, people around, a public place where he couldn't twist things or make another move. I messaged him and said we needed to talk. Just talk. He replied in seconds. "I'm so sorry. Please. I'll meet you anywhere." We met at a small cafe near the park. The place was half full, quiet enough to speak but busy enough that I felt safe. When he walked in, he looked nervous. No confident smile this time. No jokes. Just guilt all over his face. I didn't even let him sit down before I started. What you did last night was not okay. He held up his hands. I know. Messed up. I was drunk. Don't, I cut him off. Don't blame it on the drinks. You were completely aware of what you were doing. He looked down, lips tight. Continued. You came into my home. You sat next to me. You said things you had no right to say. And then you touched me. I didn't mean to cross a line. But you did, I said sharply. You made me feel unsafe. Do you get that? I was scared. I didn't want to hurt you, he said, voice low. I thought maybe there was something between us. I stared at him. Between us? I repeated. Alex, I'm married to your best friend. How could you ever think that was okay? He looked up at me, eyes almost watery. Because you're kind to me. You talk to me. You laugh with me more than anyone else does. I don't know, it felt real. I shook my head in disbelief. Kindness is not an invitation, Alex. Respect isn't flirting. I never gave you a reason to think I wanted that. He rubbed his face like he wanted to disappear. I was stupid, he whispered. I was lonely. And jealous. Brian has everything. And for a moment He stopped himself. I didn't care what he was about to say. Because no explanation would fix it. No reason would make what he did okay. There was a long silence between us. The sound of coffee cups clinking and soft jazz in the background felt like a world away from the tension at our table. I need to know something, I finally said. Have you done this before? With anyone else? His eyes darted up, surprised. What? Well, never. I didn't fully believe him. But I didn't press. I leaned forward, my voice steady now. You can try to pretend it was a misunderstanding. But you knew exactly what you were doing. You tested my boundaries. You used our history, our friendship to get close. That's betrayal. He looked like he wanted to speak, but no words came out. I don't trust you anymore, I said. Not around me. Not in my home. And honestly, I don't know if I should trust you around Brian either. His eyes widened. Please don't tell him, he said quickly. Please, Mary. If he finds out, it'll ruin everything. I stared at him. He wasn't begging because he felt guilty. He was begging because he didn't want to face the consequences. I haven't decided yet, I said, standing up. But you should know, you didn't just break my trust. You made me question everything. I turned to leave. Mary, he called softly. I stopped but didn't look back. I'm sorry. Really. I walked out the door without another word. As I walked through the street, wind blowing gently and sunlight peeking through the clouds, I felt nothing. No relief. No closure. Just a heavy weight in my chest. Should I tell Brian? The question kept circling in my mind. Telling him would destroy their friendship. Maybe even our marriage. But hiding it felt just as wrong. I didn't want to be the one to cause chaos, but Alex already did that. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that if I stayed quiet, I'd be protecting someone who didn't deserve it. Someone who could do it again. Someone who already crossed the line. And what if Brian found out later? From someone else? The thought scared me more than anything. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the floor while Brian brushed his teeth in the bathroom. He had no idea what happened. No idea that the man he trusted most had betrayed both of us. I wanted to speak, but the words caught in my throat. And as Brian walked out of the bathroom and smiled at me like everything was fine, I forced a smile back. But inside I was breaking. I couldn't sleep again. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind raced. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. I kept hearing his voice, Alex's voice, saying, please don't tell him. I hated that he put that decision on me. I hated that I even had to think about it. I turned over in bed and looked at Brian. His chest rose and fell slowly. his mouth slightly open as he slept peacefully beside me. He looked so calm, so trusting. He had no idea that while he was at work, the person he called his best friend had crossed the line with his wife. No idea that I was now holding the weight of a truth that could tear everything apart. What should I do? I whispered into the dark. Telling him the truth felt like lighting a match and throwing it into our lives. It would burn everything. Their friendship, peace, maybe even our marriage. But keeping it secret, that was like swallowing poison. Every day it would eat at me a little more. I didn't want to hurt Brian, but I also didn't want to lie. Because even if I didn't say the words, not telling him was lying. The next morning I sat on the back porch with a cup of tea, staring at the sky. The birds chirped, the breeze was warm, and the world looked so normal. But inside me nothing felt normal anymore. I pulled out my phone and opened a blank note. At the top I wrote, "Reasons to tell him. He deserves to know the truth. It's not my job to protect Alex. What happened wasn't my fault. I want to live with honesty, not secrets. What if it happens again? Or to someone else?" I stared at the list. My hands trembled as I typed. Reasons not to tell him. It could destroy his friendship. It could break our marriage. He might blame me. Things might never be the same. I sat there for a long time, staring at both sides. My heart felt like it was stuck in a tug of war between fear and honesty. I closed the note and set the phone down. Later that day I went for a walk. I needed space. Distance. I walked past the small park where Brian and I had our first kiss. I passed the bakery where he bought me a cupcake after my job interview. So many memories were tied to him. Good ones. Honest ones. And now this secret sat like a shadow between us. Can a marriage survive with a lie in the middle? Thought. I sat on a bench and looked up at the clouds. Then something happened that shook me to my core. I saw Alex across the street. With another woman. He was laughing, smiling, like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't shattered my trust. Like he hadn't begged me to protect him. Froze. He didn't see me. He was too busy showing that same charm. That same fake warmth. I realized something in that moment. He wasn't sorry. He was scared of consequences. Not ashamed of what he did. And what if he did this to someone else? What if the next woman didn't speak up at all? I couldn't protect him. And I couldn't keep lying to myself. That night, I stood in the kitchen while Brian made dinner. He was chopping vegetables and humming softly to himself. I looked at his back, his familiar shoulders, the curve of his neck. I knew what I had to do. I walked up behind him and touched his arm. He turned, smiling. "Hey, everything okay?" I swallowed hard. "No," I said softly. "I need to talk to you. It's important." His smile faded. He set the knife down. "Okay," he said. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath. My heart felt like it might burst through my chest. But I didn't look away. I owed him the truth. I thought everything would feel lighter after I told Brian the truth. But it didn't. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He just sat there in silence, staring at the floor. And then he said something that broke me. "I don't know what to say to you right now. I just need some time." He walked out of the room, and the sound of the door clicking behind him was like a punch to my chest. I cried alone that night. Not just because I hurt him, but because everything felt like it was falling apart. The man I loved. The man I trusted. The life we built. All shaking like a house during a storm. I thought that was the worst part. But I was wrong. A few days later, I met up with an old friend, Julia. She had been out of town for months, and we hadn't seen each other in a while. We met at a small cafe to catch up. I tried to act normal. Took coffee. Pretend everything was fine. But Julia could tell something was off. "You look like you've been through a war," she said softly, placing her hand over mine. I sighed. "It's been a rough week. Alex, Brian's best friend, did something really inappropriate while Brian was away. I told Brian, but it's complicated." Julia's eyes widened. Wait, Alex. I nodded slowly. She leaned back in her chair and shook her head. Mary. I didn't know how to say this before, but I've heard things about him. I never thought they were true until now. My stomach dropped. What kind of things? She looked around like she didn't want to be overheard, then leaned in closer. There's a girl named Tasha. She used to work at that design firm with Alex. We're not super close, but she told me something months ago. Said Alex made her really uncomfortable. That he used to touch her shoulders, brush against her too much, make weird comments. She filed a complaint. And then suddenly she just quit. Froze. Julia continued. She said people didn't believe her. That he was too charming. Too close with the bosses. But after she left, 2 other girls mentioned the same things. Felt sick. My mouth went dry. Are you serious? Julia nodded. I didn't want to spread rumors. But after what you just told me, I think you should talk to her. She might help you see you're not the only one. I couldn't believe it. I felt like the ground was shifting under me. Alex wasn't just a one-time mistake. He was a pattern. A predator hiding in plain sight. Suddenly, everything made more sense and became more terrifying. This wasn't about me anymore. It was bigger than just what happened in my living room. Other women had been affected. And if I stayed silent, who would be next? I went home and sat in the living room, gripping my phone tightly. Should I call Alex and confront him again? Ask him about Tasha? About the others? Or should I go straight to Brian and tell him everything? Not just what happened to me, but what Julia told me too. But would he believe it? Or would it sound like I was just trying to make Alex look worse? The questions spun in my mind like a storm. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Alex. Hey, I heard you told Brian. I think we need to talk. Don't make this worse than it is. I stared at the message for a long time. My hand trembled. Now I knew the truth. Alex wasn't just trying to protect Brian. He was trying to protect himself. But I wasn't scared anymore. I had a choice to make again. Do I meet Alex and confront him with what I know? Do I dig deeper into the other women's stories? Or do I bring it all to Brian and let him decide what happens next? I stood at the edge of a decision that could change everything. And I wasn't sure which path to take. But I knew one thing for sure. This story isn't over yet. What do you think Mary should do next? Confront Alex again? Or take the evidence straight to her husband? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe because what happens next will shock you.